Hello guys, welcome back to another video. For this video, very sorry there is currently a big storm outside my house, and this is probably my only time I'm going to be able to record it. So let's begin. So, we'll continue our thing over here in the Peloponnese. We finally have the Greek nation exploring the rest of Peloponnesia. And with this, they race to take it. However, they do end up losing a bit of the sail to the ever-expanding island empire of Crete. Not Crete, Cyprus. Meanwhile, here in the north, we see a new nation come to form. Is that? Yeah. The Dark Purple Nation. They form up here near Iona, but primarily continue exploring up here along the coast of Albania. They don't go into the mountains of Macedonia, but do move up and capture these territories. This angers Greece even more. Continues going up, however, are threatened by the Turks to not infringe on the Albanians, and since Greece would have a very hard time standing up to these guys, they don't resist, instead continuing to expand up here into the Rocky Mountains of Macedonia. Meanwhile, said Turks are going up into the territories of Bulgaria. We see them explore much of this area, event coming up pretty far along this coast. With this territory being gained, we see them also going into, of course, conquer it. We see them march up through here, but mainly along this coast surrounding Burgas, and even up into parts of Romania. However, we see a group of these guys march up here along the north and reach near the Danube River area, like Constanta, and form. Maybe that's not too close. I'm trying to make sure countries look different enough. Yeah. As you see, one form here in the Constanta area. Let me add the cities real quick. Okay. Now, we need to move over here into the Caucasia, where we see this nation continuing their exploration into this direction. They follow up along the Caspian coast, finally breaking past the Caucasus Mountains and curving around the north. However, from here, they decide that they'll stop there and mainly be going in this direction. However, he'll explore this direction, get mad by this, as we've seen a lot before. I don't know why it's always this issue. And it doesn't help that they don't feel safe with how filled Anatolia is, and they decide to keep going. They continue marching up this coast into here, and decide to continue up here. Eventually, reaching the, forgive me if I'm wrong, Volga River. Actually, let me look it up real quick. Sorry, it's the Don River. So, here, we see this, like, lemonade coloration form. I don't think we've used lemonade color yet. No, we haven't. This lemonade coloration, explore, it's polar, so they can't do much of the dawn, but they do this. So it's into this lake, and eventually explore into what we know as Crimea. Here they come on deer and realize it's a lake, and over time, eventually explore over it. However, they don't go all the way into Crimea as they start to get far from their nation, and their nation is not very big yet to supply that. Being so far north, they need to stay in decently warmer climates, forcing them to huddle forcing them to stay around the water, but doesn't mean they can't expand big. As they begin essentially entirely encompassing this bay, which I'm looking up again. Oh, the Sea of Azov. Yes. And for now, end up stopping where Crimea starts. Here, they're able to form. They aren't able to form quite very many cities. However, cities nonetheless, being here, 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 and here, with their capital obviously being there. And that was on the wrong way. Now, we move all the way up, back down to these guys. They, not entirely none people left, continue this direction, exploring up, taking up along much of lakes of the Black Sea. Meanwhile, the blue team is beginning to face internal issues and is only really able to explore this. However, the purple team is having no such issues and are only doing better at exploring essentially most of Mesopotamia. And as we see, this nation has become quite fairly strong in the region, capturing quite a lot of territory that you will see now, like this. We also, of course, see forming a plentitude of new cities. Let me fix these real quick. Being here, 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 and all the way up here. Over here with this like Syrian nation. But this team and this team are really hating on Cyprus and decided now is their time to attack them with a focus more here. So, out of the blue, light purple team troops march across the border, and so do blue team troops. Cyprus is very much unable to react in time as blue troops sweep through the capital, along with these troops taking over Rhodes. With Greece noticing that Cyprus seems to be collapsing, they will attempt to invade here. However, this will be a terrible idea since this is where Cyprus has been focusing on the most, and they are quickly repelled. And Cyprus realizes how easy that was and decides to keep going. They march up through Peloponnesia, sweeping through the city, and marching over, attacking, and taking the city. As our troops land to here and take this island, Cyprus troops converge here and begin the march on the capital. This only will get worse for Greece as we see these two nations make peace with the Cyprus team, gaining essentially anything they wanted from them for the moment. And now, with other nations like Albania attacking from here, And Turkey, yes, I'm just calling on Turkey, attacking from here. Greece is forced to surrender over to all the attacking parties. So let's see what the end of this war looks like. What we see is a complete collapse of Greece as a strong state, only able to gather enough strength to gain probably their last bit of territory for a long time. Now we return down to the red team, who is continuing their expansion, mainly focusing down the Nile River. They continue exploring here and into the Sudanese regions until it begins to curve back around when they once again stop. Back up here, they begin to explore more of this Egyptian interior and this bay, which I forgot the name of. They also explore into here. Over this direction, we see them explore this coast and move ever longer along it towards this light red team, the Libyans, if you so call them. These Libyans, meanwhile, have been expanding, but not to a large amount, mainly just sticking to this area and down here along the Libyan coast. Not even getting a new city, which is kind of sad. They have, however, been exploring into the ocean a good bit, coming up into here and figuring out that Crete is just north of here. This light red team, though, has put a lot of resources in to explore a lot of the waters off of this coast. As we come over here towards Carthaginians, they have explored all of Sardinia and have also learned about Corsica. While exploring over here, a ship comes over here and lands onto Sicily. However, unlike most of what we've seen so far, these people stayed loyal. As you see Carthage grow ever stronger, expanding up across southern Sardinia and across the western part of that island, along the south, along this Libyan coast, and over here. Over here, though, is where they're most intrigued, because they can feel current slightly increasing pressure. So, as they continue following this, which they do, they eventually reach a part where the land turns south and the currents get a lot worse. Right here is where they're forced to stop. However, their expansion is not, as the Orange Nation captures a lot of this territory, also building quite many cities in said new territories. However, what you see is a group of people from Sicily decide they are going to continue going over. They come across and come onto southern Italy, wherein they push north and eventually discover most of this south point of the peninsula, which in a new state is formed, being this very pink team, which they capture most of the territory. Carthage mad, but not attacking, takes towards the rest of Sicily, and before that nation can capture it, takes it for themselves. Like this. At the same time, over here in the blue team, sorry, not the blue team, the green team we see them begin to face internal instability. And essentially, out of the blue, we see this interior rebel, and you see a lighter cyan team row here along the coast. This is followed up with invasions from the north by the blue team, and from the south by the lime green team. Now, the lime green team doing is really bad because they're right beside their capital, and shocker, shocker, it falls. With the capital fallen in such an old state, South State, this nation essentially collapses. So let's see what that looks like. And the green nation is no more. Let's remove their capital status. And we introduce two more new capitals. In here and here. Down here, Cyprus has here stories of there being a landmass in this eastern sea and begins to explore it. Oh, the red team also hears of this and wanting to leave the Nile, tries to find it. Coming from all directions, eventually the ships meet and realize there is nothing here. Nothing. So this infuriates them. What else we see happening relates over here. As we see an orange team ship lose control when it comes out here to explore Corsica. They find this Satori, but unable to find a good docking spot, they continue north, figuring maybe just an old island. As they continue north, they end up beaching onto a new coast. It's on this coast where you definitely hear the storm. This like bluish purple country forming. I think it's just not too close to that. Yeah, you can tell the difference. This bluish purple country is very much they are big into exploring. However, I'll do that. As they come this direction, they hit the Alps. In the Alps, it's not going to be very easy to cross those. But instead, they explore up into this territory and find this stuff. And it's this stuff which they conquered. However, they're understanding here that they're also backtracking. They know about Corsica and tend to go back to explore it and say, hey, we're our own nation now. Screw off. And to this, Orange kind of says no you, but doesn't really do anything against them. And so we see these guys coming down here and taking over the rest of Corsica, and we see these guys coming up and taking the rest of Sardinia. This nation, though, doesn't have a whole lot of population. They're pretty brand new. And only forms to say here. Let me do that. That's a terrible spot. Here, here, and here. You can't tell they're very much water oriented, with the capital being here. Actually, probably here. Also, I just realized I never gave this nation over here any cities. So they probably have one here. Orange had their inside, and here. With I assume their capital probably be close to where they found the land there. But they found it there. Let's go there. Also, yes, I'm going to have in this road mode to just be a circle. Why not? Because it'd be really hard to figure out their exact borders. And yeah. I hate when I keep using the wrong tools. Looking at this, I feel like this is a good place to chop end the video. So, I hope you guys like episode 3 of WICSO with MedalMan, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.